everybody, it's Safi and Marco dishing out on the movies. Today we're doing a third Lon Chaney movie, which was silent except for the music, and it was really silent. There was no other sound except music and the sound of the movie running. So,
what about the bell ringing?
Oh yeah, that's right. Marco was pointing out the most obvious noise.
I know.
The ring, but I don't know. I don't think you could disguise that bell ringing at any time. And I really wonder where they did film it, because I wanted to read about the actress who played Esmeralda. She was buried there, so I thought that was very interesting. She was like 90 or 91. She was buried there. So,
What did you have some sort of an attraction to her?
No,
Is that
I
why
didn't
you wanted
have
to
an
look her up?
attraction to her.
You're like
She's just so little and tiny, and Priebus, the captain of the guards or whatever
Priebus?
he was like,
isn't he like Phoebus?
6 inches taller than her.
Or Phoebus?
It's
or
just
something?
the way they pair these people up. They don't seem very compatible.
No.
That's why, I look. But anyway, this movie was made in 1923. So out of all three of the movies we've seen, this is the earliest one.
Well, and let's also just say that's not an excuse for it being bad. Like there's a lot of movies from this time period that are not so good. But then there's a lot of movies that are good, as we've seen. Phantom of the Opera, He Who Gets Slapped, those are good. But this movie, it's the worst. Like, as soon as I started watching it, I gave it like 15 minutes. And 15 minutes in, I knew it was going to suck. I knew it was going to be terrible. And that 15 minutes, the feeling that I had, it continued throughout the entire movie. It's 2 hours, which it was funny, Safi was complaining yesterday about the Phantom of the Opera being an hour and 30 minutes. But this one's 2 hours, and it really...
It's way too long.
It feels like 2 hours.
And it needs to be edited. They put in things that are not in the book, from what I can tell. Now, I've never read the book, but I just had a feeling. And because they went back and forth, they have to be dramatic and do these entrances and exits with such flair and, waving their arms and stomping and making exaggerated facial movements and shock and horror and awe and happiness. And so I think I got confused. It was confusing to me. I looked at the summary, and I won't say what it was, but it was so much simpler than what was in the movie. The movie was just drawn out, and it seems like they added parts that weren't even in the book. And it's based on a book, a very famous book. So, Victor Hugo, right?
It differs with the Phantom, in that, the Phantom of the Opera, it was all about the Phantom. And this movie is supposed to be about the Hunchback, because the title of the movie is called The Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's not called The Gypsy Girl That Nobody Gives a Shit About, or the Captain Phoebus and his fucking struggle, or it's not called, what's the bad guy, Cloben or whatever the fuck,
Cloben or something.
Cloben or clothing pin or something, like
Clothespin.
This movie is just so irritating in that the Hunchback's hardly in it.
Yes, I was surprised.
It's terrible.
He's mostly, I'd say he was in a lot at the end.
Yeah.
Very, very end. And then somewhat in the middle, in the beginning, and a little tiny bit in the middle. And then it's mainly about Esmeralda, her love interest with the captain of the guard, Priebus or something.
Phoebus or Frisbee.
No, it starts with P.
Let's just call him Captain Frisbee.
And then there's two villains. One who owns her is it Clopen? I don't know. I'm so confused. And then there's
No, the guy owns the Hunchback.
oh yeah, but then there's
Clopen.
somebody who has her.
Really? I don't
And then
know.
There's another guy who's the brother to that archbishop who wears the white robe. In fact, when she's imprisoned for killing Priebus, which doesn't even happen, and she doesn't. She thinks that he's dead, but he isn't. He dresses up in the archbishop's robe and goes into the prison. He's allowed to do that because everybody bows down to him, and he's a really kind person anyway. But he's able to disguise himself. Anyway, there's like 2 or 3 villains, and they're just almost like interchangeable.
Well, it's just so jumbled, and it's so uninteresting, honestly. Like, I wanted to watch a movie about a hunchback,
Yeah.
and instead of that, you gotta watch this boring crap with these boring, stupid characters that nobody cares about, and they don't even make you care about them either. Like, the gypsy girl, who cares about her? Like, I don't care if she gets killed. Like, she and in the plot, you know, all the criticisms that we had, that we talked about when we talked about the Wishbone Hunchback episode last year, all those problems are still here. You know, the thing where Quasimodo, he grabs onto her randomly because he's ordered by Clothing Pin, and then he gets arrested for kidnapping or something. Like, really,
It's
it's just
Quasimodo gets in trouble, but he gets
BS.
in trouble with the other guy.
BS.
Yeah.
And, you know, stuff like that. You know, those problems are still here. But the movie's so overly long and bloated, it reminded me a lot of, like, Zack Snyder's Justice League cut of, like, just overly long and overly, like, just, I hate it. I hate it so much, because if I watched this movie before I watched any other silent movie, I would never want to watch any other silent movie again, or ever, because it's just the most dull thing ever.
It would have been better if they had edited it the way it was supposed to be, because they added stuff that wasn't even in the story, from what I can tell. And then they gave more of a presence to the Hunchback.
Yeah, because that's supposed to be the main
The
character.
Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's not called the Esmeralda and her guard, Prince of the Guards or whatever, romance. And I'm wondering if they did that deliberately because they thought the romance would be more, what would you call it, thrilling,
Marketable.
marketable than the Hunchback. But what I found fascinating with the Hunchback, despite the fact that he was not in it as much as he should have been, of course, the way they structured the story, now, of course, he wouldn't be in it. It was all about this romance and about Esmeralda, but the thing is, that was Lon Chaney, and he did all of that makeup, and he was climbing up and down all these, I mean, I don't know what they did, where they actually filmed this. You gotta wonder if they filmed some of it at this place.
Universal Studios.
Really? Because it was just amazing, and he was climbing all over.
Well, that was one of the only good things about the movie. And I said, like, look, that was what we wanted to see in the Wishbone episode, but we couldn't because he was a dog. And so, like, I thought that was one of the only things I liked about the movie, was seeing the Hunchback climb down this giant cathedral. Like, just, it's really, really cool to watch, and it's really, really fun. And we only get to see that one time. We never get to see that again.
Well,
We never get to see us climbing again.
I thought what was interesting, too, is he had 2 ways to ring the bell. The first one is what he does for the most part, and probably what he would do all the time, and that he kind of hangs on the cord, and he pulls it by his weight and, like, jumping up from the sides. But then at the end, when he was dying, he'd been stabbed. by one of those bad guys, he did it differently, and it still managed to be rung. But I mean, that wasn't a fake bell. That was a really big bell. So they had to have, and it took some work to make it like the real deal bell, I would think. I just wish there was some kind of information about making these movies, and if they would give more information about how they made this, because
Well, I think there is, and you can just look it up yourself.
I guess
You know,
so.
watch a documentary about it or something.
Maybe. I'll have to try, because I'd be really interested.
But, you know, that doesn't, I mean, I don't really care how they made it. I just care the fact that the story sucked. And,
Yeah.
like, I guess the story in the book sucked, too. Because,
I don't know.
like,
I've never read the book.
honestly, what I would like to see is, like, see the Hunchback fall in love with this woman, which, you know, I mean, for all the criticism yesterday that we gave the Phantom at certain points, I liked Christine and Phantom of the Opera a lot more than this character here. You know, Esmeralda, she's very, very uninteresting, and by the end of the movie, you just feel like, wow, there's all this drama and like chaos in the city over her. Like,
I was wondering about that too. I mean, they were giving her supposed the guy who was trying to control her and keep her from her lover and from being in the cathedral. He was trying to kidnap her get the crowd to get her from the cathedral of all places.
Yeah.
I mean, that's they were starting to pick at like what happened a few years ago. Pick at this historic building. I was just thinking about the real fire they had a few years ago, and for her, and I'm like, what? And you know, and how he like that was what they had in the other movie too, the one we just watched with the Phantom, where they get these huge mobs of people. And you know what was really funny, I thought, though, was that Quasimodo, I don't know why, but there was vats, like big barrels of alcohol, and he threw them over the side.
Yeah,
and
you know what that was like, Safi? Donkey Kong.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about
Donkey
that.
Kong and his
And
barrels.
The crowd is so, you know, manipulated and distracted that they start drinking out of the barrels and drinking alcohol and getting drunk. And it wasn't until Priebus woke up because there's this poet. Now, I don't know if this poet's in the real deal book or not. His name is, it starts with the G, Gringoire or Gringonio or something.
Yeah, why don't you just call him, what was that elf from Harry Potter? No, Gringotts. Wasn't it like Gringotts Bank?
Yeah.
Harry Potter.
He tells Priebus that she's alive and they're trying to take her from the cathedral, and this is all bullshit because this isn't in the book. And so he's magically perfect now because he had been stabbed. That's what she got in trouble for.
Sorry, our cat wants to come in here and listen to a
tell
review.
us it's dinner time, and for him.
Oh, close the door now.
Well, he's standing right outside the door.
And get him in here.
Come on, Boo. Okay, it's interrupting. We've got to finish.
Close the door first. I'm not going to talk until the door's closed.
So anyway, he tells Priebus. Priebus gets on his beautiful soldier outfit with the armor, and he goes riding up to where the cavalry is, and they get this huge cavalry with all these soldiers and on horses with their swords, and they go after the crowd. The crowd disperses. Anyway.
So I'd like to discuss what I think is a very confusing romance, just like the Phantom of the Opera, where
worse.
At the beginning of the Phantom, she's really interested in the Phantom. She likes him a lot. She wants to sing at the opera. She doesn't want to be a wife and quit the opera. But then she meets the Phantom, and suddenly she's like really scared of him, and she doesn't like him anymore. And then he wants her to be his slave. And then all of a sudden she really wants to be a wife and quit the opera. It's very stupid. Well, this one is even stupider, because at the beginning, Esmeralda meets Captain you-know-what, or Captain Frisbee.
Yes.
Well, there's something else that would be really funny to call him. And she met him, and she I guess she falls in love with him because he's the guy. Like, there's no reason for her to fall in love with him at all. It's just he's the guy.
Well,
And then after they fall in love and they're making out and she pledges marriage or something, all of her poor people, gypsy tribe, come over and they're like, hey, what's going on in here? Our people aren't supposed to mix together.
well, actually, that was true.
But then all of a sudden she pretends that she doesn't like him, and she pretends that she's not in love with him, and it's so stupid. And then they split up, and she never falls in love with Quasimodo or even
No.
has any kind
I
of
don't
feeling
think she
for
was
him at
supposed
all.
to.
She just, feels sorry for him a little bit after he supposedly tried to kidnap her, but he really wasn't trying to.
He was doing it for somebody else's bidding, one of those bad guys, and he got punished for it by the king. He got whipped, and they did it, and they had a hourglass, and when the hourglass was running, he would get lashes, and it didn't stop. The lashes didn't stop until the hourglass was done, which I thought was interesting. And she felt sorry for him. He wanted water. It was all over, and he wanted water. Nobody gave him any water or untie him. And so that's why they became friends. And he was kind of, Quasimodo was shocked because, he'd been accused of kidnapping her, and he had tried, but it wasn't really from him. It was from his, quote, master. So
Another issue that I had, and now this is a problem that I think would have happened in any movie, regardless of if it were nowadays, because I think they even said in the Disney version that, Quasimodo doesn't get together with the girl. But a huge problem that I had,
I didn't watch that either.
and I really hate, I think I probably saw it in school one time, but it was just, it was pretty good, but it turns out kind of the same, so it's like, fuck that shit. I'm not watching that. If there is a version where he gets together with Esmeralda, then I'll watch that version, because, she's a dirty, gross gypsy, and he's a dirty, gross hunchback, and it's like, well, why is she with Captain Frisbee fuck? It's like, who gives a fuck about Captain Frisbee? Like, who the fuck is Captain Frisbee?
Well,
What has Captain Frisbee ever done for France? Did Captain Frisbee stand up to the Nazis? No. Captain Frisbee said, okay, Nazis, you can take over France because, we're not going to really put up a fight here. Fuck Captain Frisbee. What a weak-ass character that is. At the end of the movie, Quasimodo, he comes in on clothespin, and he's about to rape Esmeralda. He's about to abuse her, and Quasimodo saves her, and he sacrifices his life for her, and he throws clothespin off the building, and he stabs him twice, Quasimodo. And what does Esmeralda do after he saves her and he rescues her?
She goes off with Captain.
Yeah, she doesn't ever thank him. She doesn't go up to him to see, how is he doing? He's gotten stabbed. How is he doing?
I don't think they knew he got stabbed.
She just sees Captain Frisbee fuck come in, and she's like, oh, there you are. And they snuggle and they're kissing, and it's like, God, what an ungrateful bitch. It's just like in It Chapter 1, that new version of It, where that guy saved the the redheaded girl, and instead of her kissing him, she kisses like the main pretty boy of the group. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what this is like. It, like, Quasimodo saved her life, saved her, sacrificed his own life for her, and what does he get? He gets shit.
Well, he gets death.
He gets nothing. And that is an unsatisfactory ending. And, it was one thing for the Phantom where, that guy was pretty fucked up. I mean, he was like...
He was insane.
He was a real weirdo. But Quasimodo, he's got some problems. And, it's not like they couldn't help him figure it out. Like, it seems like just society does not care about him at all.
Because he looks different.
Yeah. So, like, and I feel like nowadays, too, especially, I don't understand why they never made a version of the Hunchback where Quasimodo ends up with Esmeralda, because I always thought as a kid that that's what happened.
I never thought that at all.
And so I was really surprised that the story was that she gets with Captain Frisbee Fuck.
Oh, I didn't know that. So, I never watched the Disney version because I don't think it was on when my first son was at the age to watch those kinds of movies. And then, like Marco said, he saw it at school. But neither one ever expressed any desire to see it, and I wasn't interested in seeing it either. So it's just one of those, Disney cartoon movies, which, if you want to watch the real, version, a real movie version of it, you can. But sometimes these, they're pretty good at replicating certain things. But like Marco saw it, he told you what he thought of it. It was really basically the same thing, only in cartoon version.
Yeah.
Well, in lesser.
I'm not sure. I can't exactly remember, but I know that he doesn't end up with her.
No,
so.
I never thought they would end up together. I just thought they would be really good friends. Because she doesn't love him. But the other guy, I don't see how she could love him either.
But Safi, she is a dirty, stinky
but she's
gypsy.
Not really, because what happened?
Safi, you can tell that she smells like fish and rotten apples and shit.
No, she does.
Look at her face, Safi.
She was a pretty little girl.
Oh.
And she looked too young. It's this instance again where she looks really young. Like almost, I would say 20 or 19 or 18 or 17.
She did not look like a teenager.
And
There's no way.
Looks like he's 40.
Well, no, I just thought Captain Frisbee Fuck looked like a girl, kind of. Like he looked like an ugly girl with a mustache. And that's another thing, like, I can't stand these old movies with these love interests and they have these stupid little pencil mustaches. It's like, who do you think you are? Who do you think you're impressing? Those mustaches look like shit.
But that was a style that either at the time or they thought that was what you're supposed to wear.
Those mustaches are so bad looking. I want to rip it off his face and just stomp on it.
Okay.
And then I want to stomp on this movie too, because this movie just sucked. I mean, what a letdown this movie was. Like, seriously, like, what a bore fest. Well, like, I couldn't even watch it without listening to podcasts in the background.
I told Marco that, we've watched 3 of these types of movies so far. With Lon Chaney, which we have gotten to see his skill with makeup and acting when he's been able to be on the screen. And that this was the worst of the 3. And the one we just watched, the Phantom, was 2. And then that very first one, which has an odd name, with the He Who
Walks Behind the Rose.
No. About the smile and the slap. He Who Gets Slapped, which is a very odd title. That was the best one. So, it's just kind of weird But I guess if you just want to appreciate the talents of Lon Chaney and that he was taken too early, he probably could have worked until 90 if he would have lived that long, because he was so good at makeup. I mean, maybe he wouldn't be doing his own makeup. Maybe he would have been doing somebody else's.
Well, I
it's
just
very
think
sad,
I think too the fact that like look, if you don't look at it like Esmeralda, the stinky gypsy, shouldn't be with him, look at it like this, and you know she doesn't have any ability to shave either, and so she's as hairy as Quasimodo, you know, like, and that's another thing. Why is Quasimodo so hairy? Because he's like an ape.
I know it.
He's like an ape man.
I just think it's a birth defect or whatever.
A birth defect.
His whole thing is a birth defect.
His whole thing is a birth defect. Well, I think another thing though is that I told you, and that and why are you backing away too? We're not done with the review at all.
We're almost done.
No,
just
we're
keep
not.
Going. Yeah, we are.
In the He Who Gets Slapped review, I said in that video, I don't want to see like every single movie is where like Lon Chaney is the ugly side character, and then there's the love interest and he's in love with her, and then instead of getting with him, she gets with the pretty boy, and then when she gets with the pretty boy, he gets to die at the end of the movie, and you realize that has now happened in every single Lon Chaney movie we've seen. It happened in Ace of Hearts, where he did it on purpose, and he was like, love is going to conquer all, because, you know, the pretty boy gets to get with the pretty girl, and I don't get shit, because I'm Lon Chaney. And then in He Who Gets Slapped, same thing happened. Pretty guy gets with the pretty girl, Lon Chaney gets killed. And then in The Phantom, the pretty guy gets with the pretty girl, Lon Chaney gets killed. In this movie, the Lon Chaney dies, pretty guy gets with the pretty girl, boom. And it's like I'm tired of it. I'm so sick and tired of it. It's like you could at least have one of these movies where that doesn't happen. You could at least like try to vary it up a little bit instead of literally telling the same exact story over and over and over again. Like, I don't care that he's good at playing like a sad, sympathetic character. I care the fact that the story was trash. And maybe this could have been the one story where you have the stinky, ugly gypsy with the ugly ass Quasimodo. I mean, Safi, you thought she was pretty?
She was very young.
Well, Safi, but the fact that like you look at her and then it's just like she's really like in the mindset that she's too good for Quasimodo.
I don't think she's too good for anybody. I just think that she was just going to be his friend.
Like, he saved her life.
So that doesn't mean that she's going to pledge her eternal love for him because he
saved
her life.
She didn't even check up on him or anything.
No,
she just said, fuck you.
I know.
She just let him in, and so he just had to go wander off, and he goes back to the bell tower, and he had to sound the bell so that he could get some kind of attention, because like it was like, you know, no one cares about Quasimodo. And
well, when he was doing that, the poet and the archbishop ran to see what was going on with him.
But that was after a while, though. He was already almost dead.
Well, they didn't know.
Well,
They know.
Esmeralda should have been there with them, and she's like, no, I'm going to go snuggle with Captain Frisbee Fuck.
And that was confusing, too, because he was at the home of this woman, and they were together. She had this ball because he got promoted. He wasn't in the position at the beginning that he was at the end of the movie. He was in a higher position.
Yeah, at first he didn't have balls, and then she gave it to him.
And
she gave
had
him
this
balls.
Ball.
Yeah.
And this is what was interesting to me, too. This girl is a well-known gypsy girl who dances in front of the cathedral.
Yeah, she dances until you can smell her down the street. Around the street corner, you go, ew, what's that smell? Oh yeah, it's the stinky gypsy who thinks that she's too good for Quasimodo. of Notre
anyway,
Dame.
He becomes that captain becomes interested in her, and that just doesn't happen. That didn't happen.
No.
And I don't know if it happened in the book, but I don't know. I can't say I doubt it because that wouldn't be right. But it just, and then she has. I told you that other woman had this ball, and it was to honor him and his promotion. So he wants Esmeralda to go to this ball, which is unbelievable. Even Esmeralda's going like, what the hell? And he gets these women to get clothes for her so she looks like everybody else. And he introduces her as the Princess of Egypt or something. And that, I just don't think that would ever happen. It just was bizarre. That's what I mean is all these little add-ins to the story that I don't think ever happened. And to make the movie more voluminous or more interesting or add to the romance, which I thought was more marketable, I don't know. It's weird. Really weird. So, I don't have anything else to say about it.
The last thing I'd like to say is that, I don't know. Well, actually, I would just like to say this is so far probably the weakest, like, monster movie that I've seen. The weakest, like, Universal monster. Because there's so many remakes, you know, but, like, the classic Universal Monsters movies, this has been the worst one. Because it is so overly long and so boring. The story's terrible. I mean, Safi even wrote that she didn't like the story.
No,
and then she put a star next to it so that she can remember. And
I just wanted to make sure that I said that.
It's just unbelievable that there's been so many versions of this story, and none of them have tried to like do an obvious like fix and make it so that Quasimodo gets with Esmeralda or something like that. Like none of these have done that in all this time. That's pretty bad.
The best one has been, we think, even though we haven't really seen it, is the Hunchback of Notre Dame with Charles Laughton, who was a very famous actor, and he was married to that woman. Remember the woman who played Frankenstein's, the Bride of Frankenstein?
Elsa Lanchester.
Elsa Lanchester. And he's very famous, very, very good actor. And so, I don't know about the story actually, but I'm sure he did an excellent job portraying the part. So.
Well, I don't know, because like I think any version where the Hunchback doesn't end up with Esmeralda is kind of a waste of time.
Well, I just don't see it happening. I don't think it happened in the book either, even though.
But I thought that was the whole point of the story, was that like her.
I don't know what the whole point of the
her
story
character is a misfit from society. She doesn't fit in because she smells.
No, she doesn't fit in because she's a gypsy. And gypsies were looked down on. They've been looked down on for centuries.
And he doesn't fit in either. And so they're like the perfect pair. And then they meet and they fall in love. And there's a bad guy and, he fucks with everything. And then they get together at the end. Like, I thought that would be the story. Like, I don't understand why the story is that there's some fucking retard named Captain Frisbee Faggot Fuck. Like,
don't you just love Marco's grammar and his speech? It's just really inspiring. Well, whatever. I'm gonna look up and see if, according to the book, did Esmeralda get together with Quasimodo?
Why wouldn't she?
I don't think so.
She smells.
They're just friends.
She smells.
I bet he smells too.
Yeah, they both smell.
Well, whatever. So, but that thing with that captain, I don't know. I don't know if that's real, if that happened in the book or not.
They could have a smelly child together.
Apparently, I didn't really go into reading about because I had to finish this up.
I mean, because
Quasimodo was a real character.
Because a real
person in real life.
Well, because what is the good version of the story, Safi? Shrek. And in Shrek, that same thing happens. You know, Shrek, he could be like the Quasimodo character.
Yeah, really.
Fiona is like Esmeralda. Captain Frisbee Faggot Fuck is like the back, he's like the Prince Charming. No, Prince Charming. And then the bad guy in Shrek, what was that guy's name?
No, I don't know. With the dark hair.
Yeah,
black hair.
he would be Clothespin. So that's the perfect, so see? Shrek did it. So Shrek is what this movie should have been, because, it makes sense, but this movie, you can't do that, because...
This movie was made in 1923. That's the year my dad was born.
Oh, so what? That's not an excuse. Maybe
just a billion years ago.
Maybe your father's parents should have made better movies. Maybe they should have been better at storytelling. I don't know.
No way.
Well, the people of that generation, they're not boomers. What generation were they called? Fucking,
I don't know what they were called.
The ancient ones?
Yeah. Well, not as ancient as the ones I've seen in that YouTuber who goes around the deserts of Arizona and finds all these really old archaeological sites. It's unbelievable. But anyway, no, they're not the ancient ones. Those are the ancient ones. So anyway, I don't know what else to say. I gave it a Kraft macaroni and cheese, which is boring. I don't like Kraft macaroni and cheese. It has the same flavor. It never varies from it, although they've tried to change it and people who like
They have several flavors. They have thick and creamy, which tastes different, and it was good. They have the 3 cheese. That one tastes different, and it's good.
Yeah, but the original one, to me, is just boring. And you could have a whole pot of it, eat every piece of it, and it would taste the same, and it'd be boring. And that's what this movie was. It was boring.
Yeah.
They needed to edit it and not worry about the marketable thing. They could have made it more marketable by making the Hunchback more featured, because that guy was Lon Chaney.
Very good at acting.
Talented.
Yeah.
They wasted his talents.
They really did.
They did allow him to do the makeup thing, which nobody could replicate, and that's why they let him. And they knew how valuable that was, because they sure focused on it when they could, but they did not allow him to make more of a mark in the story. And anyway, so it's just boring, and it's too bad, because I almost fell asleep. I actually fell asleep once.
Yeah.
And Marco was falling asleep, and he watches tons of stuff, and so...
Yeah, I had to watch stuff in the background to make it so that I didn't fall asleep.
Yeah. So anyway, I've got a cat who's waiting for his dinner.
But what about my review?
Oh, I'm waiting. I thought...
My food rating is... Now, this didn't take long. On my birthday last year... I wanted to have New Orleans food, and I got some very expensive food from Goldbelly, including turtle soup, chicken gumbo, and shrimp and grits.
Which was interesting. It's nothing like we've ever had.
And this movie, to me, was like the turtle soup. I was very excited to have the turtle soup, because I thought that'd be fun to try. I've never had turtle before. But it ended up being the worst part of the meal. It was very gross. It tasted like lentils. It had a very dirty, earthy taste to it. It was so bad. But the chicken gumbo and the shrimp and grits were really good.
Yeah.
And it might have actually been bad too, the turtle soup, because a couple hours after I ate it, I had a couple of problems in the bathroom. So, it might have also been bad soup. And I think that this movie is like a perfect example of the turtle soup of movies.
Well, I think I had a bite of that. It was not good.
But the other things were good, and I think about what this movie could have been. This movie could have been a chicken gumbo. It could have been a shrimp and grits, but instead, it's a turtle soup.
Well, one thing I've noticed, they really have a fixation on mobs.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
I don't know.
I wish people would look at it today to see what it looks like, because I can see how it operates. But they really went, the last two movies, and I'm trying to think, the first movie, they didn't have a mob. They just had a huge cast. They all dressed it identically.
They had the mob of clowns that would all slap on Chaney.
But they were still marched in a lockstep, like an army. And these were all like last two movies. They were just like, I think it's all over the place.
Because back then they understood that mobs made a difference, and mobs would make good change, and that's why the French Revolution happened, is because a mob formed and they killed all those piece of shit people in the French government, and then France became a better place, although they still bended over for the Nazis. So. But, still, like, the French Revolution, that's what this movie's leading up to as well, because they mention, like, King Louis the Seventh, he's the one who's in charge at that point, and so this movie's kind of like a prologue to the French Revolution.
A precursor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that kind of is, like, a part of the movie story, and I really don't care about. I wanted to watch the Hunchback story. I don't care about the French Revolution story.
So anyway, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and become one of our subscribers so you can add to the discussion. And you will know when we do another video, and it'll be a good thing to be part of our channel. So goodbye, everybody.
Bye.